Hey guys, for today's project, I'm going to make a miniature based on an image that came from the Midjourney AI image generator. What you can do is give it a bunch of words and the computer creates an image for you. Midjourney is run inside of Discord, so you're basically just chatting with the robot. So you give it a prompt called Imagine, and then you can tell it whatever you want and give it some parameters. Like here, I just told it to do a 16:9 aspect ratio. Then you wait and it pumps out 4 images. You have a bunch of options of what to do next, but I'm just going to set another parameter and give it the HD parameter, and it comes out with a very different art style. So as you can see, I played around with a lot of different things. These are just some of the weird ones that I did with doors, and these started to really strike my, interest. I looked through them and I thought this one might be really cool to recreate in a miniature, and so that's what we're going to do today. To get started, I'm just going to take some of this XPS foam. It's just insulation foam board that you can get at the hardware store. Cut it up into pieces to start making these weird kind of stone steps and kind of just stage out what that shape is going to be, where I'm going to place the 2 doors on either side of it. And then I just started to add texture to it by doing things like this with a rolled up aluminum foil. You could just roll it over and it adds this nice texture to make it look a little more like stone maybe. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm kind of sketching out these really rough stone stair looking things and just kind of getting the main shape down for them all before I glue them down onto the board. So I'm just texturing them. I'm using my knife on the edges to clean those up and make them a little more random, and I'm adding them to the stack here to see what they look like from this point of view. I usually use hot glue for a lot of this foam stuff. It just works really well. You just have to be careful of not melting it too much with really hot glue guns. And now I'm just painting them a basic gray for the base layer. I'm going to add some dirt. I'm going to cover them with vines and things later as well. We're making a scene that's, a little different from the normal abandoned miniature scene. So my thinking behind doing this whole project is basically to create something more surreal than my normal realistic looking, dioramas based on photos of real places. A lot of people are talking about Midjourney and the other AI art generators as if it's going to kind of ruin everything for artists and make people lose their jobs and things like that. And I think it's really important to look at as a tool that we can use to create more imaginative and creative things. I really like the strange, quirky, just kind of look to a lot of the Midjourney images and how it really makes it surreal. Architecture is often not making any sense, and I just like that. I think it will make for a really cool miniature, and so I wanted to play around, and I have a few ideas that I might chase after doing more projects in the future from Midjourney. This one just seemed like a really fun one to give it a shot, and so far it's been really fun. So if you haven't, played around with any of the AI art generators, give it a shot. I think what I like about doing this type of thing is you can totally buy little pieces for not even that much money and use them for your own projects. You can paint them and weather them and do different looks with them, and you don't have to make everything from scratch or own a 3D printer, although I am for all of those things as well. You can just get started very easily in this hobby by doing this. So with this door, I added that wood color. And now I'm using the liquid latex technique that I use a lot, which is basically just sponging on some liquid latex, painting over it, and then when it dries, you can rub a lot of that off and it looks like peeling paint. I'm going to do that with both doors. And here you can see me beginning to rub this one off with an eraser. It helps just get a little bit of grip, and you can get rid of that eraser marking, which is some water or a wash of paint that you're probably going to use anyway. So I always film all of my miniatures at the end cinematically, and for this one, since it is this foreground scene, I need a background. I've decided to reach out to my friend and see if he could make me a background made in Unreal Engine. Then the plan would be to project that background behind the miniature and film it all together in one practical shot. I had a couple ideas of how to do this, and I'm really excited to share with you later in the video how I ended up pulling it off. So one thing that I think is really fun with creating this project, and really anything generated from Midjourney, is that it creates these scenes that are kind of dreamlike. Things don't quite make sense, things aren't straight, architecture just is all over the place. but it's a lot of fun and it feels a lot more like dreams. Like these doors are going to be standing in the nowhere with walls, but not connected to anything. So hopefully with some imagination, we can create these kind of worlds that maybe only exist in our dreams, or, really express feelings and ideas and stories that are hard to tell through realistic photos and dioramas. I'm trying to keep most of the techniques I'm using here kind of simple and more accessible. So, one, I can get to the filmmaking aspect and have a lot more fun with that, but also so that some of you that are starting out can see that it doesn't take a ton of materials and tools that you don't have access to yet. You can certainly do a few things and explore your creativity, come up with some fun things using your imagination, and have fun with it. So I realized taking actual dirt or peat moss or whatever this was and gluing it took a lot more effort than I thought. I had to do a couple layers of watered down PVA glue and isopropyl alcohol, but it worked in the end. And now I'm adding this in the back to add a little more depth, a little more of a hill, and just covering this with glue so I can add more dirt. I'm planning on adding some foliage, bushes, vines, different things all over to kind of break up the scene, and probably even some static grass. That is one thing that is not quite as accessible. You need a static grass applicator, but I'll walk you through what it looks like, and you can totally do it without that as well. So to start, I'm adding just some watered down glue in some areas. There is some glue that you can buy purposely for this. And then using the static grass applicator, it allows the little grass pieces to stand straight up in the glue and look a lot more realistic. But you can totally do this with just shaking it. It just doesn't come out quite as good with all of the grass standing up. Now, all of the bushes and foliage and vines that I'll be using for this project are from my friend over at Diorama Presepi. They have really awesome materials and just amazing foliage. I bought a few $100s, I think, of things months and months ago, and then he also reached out and sent me some things extra. I always recommend him when you need any kind of really realistic looking, even leaves like this, but foliage, vines, different things for your projects. It isn't going to be the cheapest, but it really takes projects like this that need a lot of, natural plant life and things. It just takes it to the next level. One way to do bushes a little cheaper is to get something like different colors of flocking and make your own bushes. That's a lot more accessible. You can get that at the hobby store in most places and get started. Now, to pull off the shot, I have something really cool to show you. So a while back, I tried using a projector that we had for video games to use as a backdrop in one of the miniatures, and it didn't work out that well. I had to use a TV screen because the brightness of that projector wasn't very great. Also the resolution. So I actually reached out to Nebula, who's under the brand of Anchor, because I saw this projector come up and it looked quite awesome. It's a laser 4K projector with about 2400 lumens of brightness. That should be plenty for what I'm planning to do. It can also project up to 150 inches of a screen. So behind most of my scenes, that would be plenty of space, and I can add in a photo or video, any kind of element to make the backdrop. Instead of having to do a whole green screen and the complications that come with that, I can make a backdrop behind the miniature, and that's what I'm going to do here. I've set up my projector in the basement, shooting at a screen that I'm using as a rear projection screen. And on the other side, I've set up my miniature with a softbox to light it above. I also have to blend in this thing with the background as much as I can, so I'm using Practical Fog with this awesome Smoke Genie tool that I've shown in the past, just trying to blend some real practical effects in this foreground miniature with the background. Now let's see how it turned out. As you guys saw earlier with the projector on the moon, I'm trying to play a little bit more with product videos as I get products for this channel. And I built that scene with the moon scape and used a TV behind it. And I'm going to show exactly how I did that on my Patreon if you guys are interested. Moving forward in this channel, I'm going to try to play a little bit with that type of stuff with products that I get and show that behind the scenes on Patreon, just to show a little more of how to make product videos and miniatures combined. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. I know it was a lot of fun for me, and I have a lot of really cool projects coming right up. I can't wait to see you then.